You may have heard the phrase, perception is reality. I know that this applies not only in our everyday lives, but in the game of Survivor as well. How people perceive you, whether their perception is factual or just feelings, completely shapes their reality. It can be incredibly hard to overcome once someone's mind is set, and that can be a benefit or cause a downfall to a player's game in Survivor. So how does it apply in the game of Survivor, and what can be done to shift someone's perception of you? Let's find out. Thank you for supporting this channel. Subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing are crucial to this channel's growth and making all of this possible. If you want to do a little bit more to help the channel from being perceived as dead, then consider supporting this channel on Patreon. You get every video weeks early. You can also vote for which survivors I tell the stories of and get an exclusive Patreon only video each month. Thank you for your support. So first, I must address that this subject of perception can easily be discussed using every single player and every single season of Survivor as an example. We see all the time a player's game get tanked because of the perception of them, and even see others slide to the end despite us being baffled as to how, simply because they're perceived as something that they may not be. Whether it is in Survivor All-Stars, and despite having done nothing wrong, all 4 winners who come into the game are perceived as not being worthy of winning again since they already won $1 million check, so they need to be voted out right away.
Tina and Ethan, 2 winners. Done. It's so easy to convince the others to vote off the 2 winners. You're a very strong member of the tribe, but you're also a winner, Ethan.
I know, that's
It's a
your best
detriment.
advantage.
No.
And that holds true. Not a single winner makes the merge that season simply due to the perception of them not being worthy. Or for a more modern example, let's look at Survivor Winners at War, when Sarah Lucina wants to give Nick her reward of Chinese food for his birthday. For her, this is a gift she wants to give him out of the kindness of her heart.
I gave Nick my reward as a human being to human being. There was no gameplay was in it. It was a complete, genuine decision.
But that doesn't matter because the perception of her doing this causes most people to say that this is clearly a game move. They have all seen her on her winning season playing a cutthroat game, so anything she does is going to be viewed through this lens.
I'm like, come on, Sarah. And I've done that before. I've given up reward. And you know what they did? They voted me out.
I don't trust her any more than I already did, and it wasn't much because I know the game Sarah plays, and if Sarah was told to write down my name tonight, she would.
She doesn't see it that way because she knows why she did it, but what she fails to do is put herself into other people's shoes and understand that this looks like jury management. So if he's on the jury, he's more likely to vote for her. When Tony tries to explain this to her, she doesn't get it.
Then everybody's probably saying that was a strategic move on Sarah's part. Sarah's playing a great game.
That's fine.
Sarah's got to go.
Because I gave up a reward?
In Survivor Worlds Apart, when 2 people from each tribe are given a choice between being honest or being deceitful, on the blue collar tribe, Mike and Dan choose the honest route, and yet, despite doing the right thing, they're still perceived as lying.
I don't believe that's a full bag of beans. I think they chose the other one. That is not a big bag. What was the other one? 4 beans?
Meanwhile, the no collar tribe has no issues in believing the 2 people on the tribe made the decision that they said they did, which is being honest. Then on the white collar tribe, they do pick the bad decision of being deceitful, and their entire tribe knows right away that they are lying to them, and yet we aren't shown anyone taking any issue with this.
I'm thinking that they have the clue to the hidden immunity idol, but I would do the same thing. I can't be pissed off at anybody else. This is a game.
So every example so far has been a perception issue that actually hurts you, but sometimes perception can be your best friend, such as in Survivor Nicaragua, when unbeknownst to him, Judd is nicknamed Fabio, which makes this guy, who is clearly a physical threat, seem a lot less threatening because who can take someone named Fabio as a serious threat to their game?
Guy with the long blonde hair, you know, he's a dumb blonde. I mean, I never really called a guy a dumb blonde before, but he's a dumb blonde. You're Fabio, you go get it.
All right, the name Fabio, man. I didn't even realize I was being called that at first. Fabio like rides a white horse and does butter commercials and is kind of a cheese ball.
Which brings us to the perception dilemma I want to look at today, and that is going to be one player who plays on an all newbie season and therefore everyone has no preconceived notions about them, and that is Nick Iadanza, who played on Australian Survivor's inaugural season in 2016, which will be paralleled with Aubry Bronco, who plays on a mixed season of newbies and returnees on Survivor Edge of Extinction. So let's start with Nick, whose story was the main motivation for making this video in the first place. Anyone who has already seen his story video on my channel is well aware of the pickle he got himself in, but for those who are not familiar, let me catch you up. Nick is a high school teacher and is genuinely perceived as likable by his tribe. However, in episode 3 of his season, he is given the same exact dilemma as the player of Survivor Worlds Apart, where he can either pick to be honest and get a large bag of beans for his tribe, or be deceitful and get a small bag and a clue to the hidden immunity idol. Now at this point, Worlds Apart has already aired, and later in the season, he even acknowledges having seen 32 seasons of Survivor. So this is not a new scenario for him to grasp. He has seen how this is played out on their season, and despite that, he picks being deceitful and thinks he can get away with this by telling everyone a fake poem for the hidden immunity idol while keeping the real clue for himself. He figures, it'll be good enough to throw everyone off.
So, dig in the ground.
Dig in the ground.
Near a throne.
Near a throne for a king.
As you may have guessed, no one is thrown off, and the delivery of this fake poem by him and Tegan is done so poorly that everyone can easily see how he is trying to pull the wool over their eyes.
My BS radar went bing, 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 bing.
A king's throne. Just didn't make sense.
Holy crap, they don't believe me.
Now, unlike on Worlds Apart, no one is like, it's whatever, this is just a game, I get why they're doing it. Instead, Nick gets a label that he is not able to shake off for the remainder of the game.
My opinion about Nick is that he is a snake and he can't be trusted one bit, and I'm really glad I found that out early.
He isn't able to shake this at all, and to his defense, he doesn't know he's even being called this by people behind his back until the tribal before he gets voted out. When at tribal council, Sam says Nick is a snake and everyone knows that.
We all know Nick's a bit of a snake, there's no doubt about that. We're trying our best to keep an honest integrity group.
As you may have guessed by Nick's facial reaction, this is news to him. He has no idea that from episode 6 to 16 that people have been calling him a snake in this game behind his back to us in confessionals or to others at camp. The distrust in Nick started when he lied to everyone about the idol clue and just grew and grew to the point that the perception of him overshadowed the reality that he is just a guy trying to play the game of Survivor, while mostly everyone else is treating Survivor like this is some real life dilemma they're in, and they want to be perceived as moral despite doing the same thing as him in lying to others and voting them out. This is perfectly exemplified when the day after that tribal council, Nick talks to Sam and tries to find out why he's calling him a snake, and Sam says that actually, I have no hard evidence to support this statement I'm making openly to everyone. All he has heard are other people's stories and perceptions and has decided that all of this combined must make Nick a snake, even though Sam has no evidence.
I'm not saying that you'd be a snake or anything outside of the world. I'm just going based on the situations and the stories that I've heard, and none of them has been against me.
The reason Nick is having this conversation is because Elle, who is the third party in the matter, talks to him about this and tells him that Sam's perception is probably based on stories, and Nick should take the opportunity to try and shift it.
I think it's just people going off believing what other people are saying about you. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be going off firsthand how you've been treating them.
Now, he does take Elle's advice and even says he wants to change Sam's perception of him, but at this point it is too little too late. Sam has been believing this for weeks, that Nick is a snake, and it is buried so deep in his brain that Nick can't possibly do anything to change his mind in only 1 or 2 days. That perception has outgrown the reality, and in a social setting of life, or in the game of Survivor, that can really hurt. Sam calls Nick a snake multiple times throughout the rest of the episode until he is finally voted out.
You're a snake in every aspect of the word, and I'm very, very happy that you'll be leaving the game tonight, mate.
Now, it can be argued that Nick dug himself into that hole and that he is to blame for the perception of him. Fair enough. Let's contrast what happened to Nick with Aubry Bronco on Survivor Edge of Extinction. Now at this point, Aubry has played Survivor 2 times previously and has finished in 2nd place in her first season and in 4th place in her 2nd season. Many consider her robbed in the first season she played in, so much so that in many people's minds, she is the rightful winner of that season, even if she never actually got the title of Sole Survivor and the $1 million check. When she enters into Edge of Extinction right away, the new players do not like that there are any returnees coming back to play. They feel like these returnees have had their shot and they need to be voted out immediately. Survivor was going to do this season with this twist no matter what, so even if Aubry, Joe, David, and Kelly all declined to come onto the season, there would have just been 4 other returnees instead, and they would be in the same boat.
There's a general feeling on the tribe that returning players have played before, they've had their shot. This is our first chance and we should get to play before they do.
So the big question is, what is someone like Aubry supposed to do here? She's very aware of this target she has, and she knows the perception of returnees can't be positive, so she says she will have to lay low and be a snake in the grass and strike when the time is right.
The best thing to do sometimes is lay in the grass and then come out like a cobra when the time is right.
However, her tactics of laying low are not working at all to change the perception of her being a threat. And this is shown when all of the new players in Kama get together and corroborate their stories to find out that actually Aubry is going around and while talking to them one-on-one, telling all of them the same exact thing in an attempt to make a personal connection with each of them.
She grabbed my arm and she said, "We really like you."
Now let me tell you, she said the exact same thing to me. She said the exact same thing to her, the exact same thing to Gavin.
Funnily enough, Nick did the same thing in his season, and the moment anyone talked to someone else and found out that this is what he was doing was the moment we heard for the first time how he is a sneaky snake, which is how Aubry just described herself.
He actually came up to me and said the same thing. Like from the moment I saw you.
What, that you got a good vibe from it?
From the moment I saw you.
Oh, it's his line!
It gets to the point that Aubry's tribe, Kama, are so entrenched in this idea that they slip up and say we need to get out Aubry and Joe, while standing not but 2 feet from Joe himself, who to his credit plays this very cool.
I think Joe and Aubry kind of come as a pair.
They do. What do we do?
Oh my God, Joe is over there, and I had no idea.
The perception that these returnees do not belong here becomes such a reality for the newbies that the first chance they get, they make Aubry feel safe enough to not play her idol and then vote her out the very first tribal council that they go to.
5th person voted out of Survivor. Aubry.
You guys are unbelievable players.
So far, it seems like it's hopeless. If you're perceived one way, whether it's good or bad, you're set in stone. There's nothing you can do. We see all the time in Survivor how a woman will enter the game and want to be perceived as strong as a man, or a large man will enter the game and want to be perceived as bad at challenges, so when the merge hits, people aren't gunning for him. They're wanting to be perceived in ways that they're just not. But all hope is not lost. In Survivor Winners at War, Tony Vlachos made it his #1 goal to change the perception of him from being perceived as this large strategic threat that plays like a wild card to a goofy guy who people can pretty much ignore in favor of voting someone else out.
And they're slowly coming down as they see Tony's around the camp all day, all night. It's coming down like this. And when it gets down to here, bang! That's where the sucker punch comes in.
Now, Nick actually tried something similar in his season after being voted out of his first tribe. It was a twist in the season. He got voted out and he was just swapped to another tribe instead of leaving the game. So when he goes into that new tribe, he attempts to change his game. He just wants to be a nice worker bee that no one really thinks about as a strategic threat.
My game plan at Sanapu is that tried and true method of old school Survivor, just be helpful, just be nice.
But the stigma of him being a snake overshadows anything he does. But Tony goes all in like crazy on this idea of lowering his threat level and changing the perception of him. Throughout the season, we see him do ridiculous things like build a ladder that is clearly unsafe just to get some breadfruit.
Now I'm questioning my read on him. Maybe he's not joking. Maybe he really believes that he is the structural engineer.
Or changing the words of the Baby Shark song to Sandra Shark and then grabbing a shark and overreacting like crazy just to be viewed as a lunatic.
Baby shark doo-doo-doo, Sandra shark doo-doo-doo. What's the fight me, man? As soon as I picked it up, it went, ah!
And it works. He is patient and focuses all of his energy on changing the perception of him, that by the time he is viewed as a possible threat, he wins 3 immunity challenges in a row, has a strong alliance, and has built the necessary social bonds to pull favors and not receive a single vote all season. Now, not everyone can be Tony Vlachos. Only one other person has won Survivor twice like him, and her queen persona has bit her in the butt every time she has returned to play. But the idea that in life and in Survivor that what you look like and what you do will have you being perceived a certain way is something to always be mindful of. While in real life it will never result in someone voting you out of a tribe, it can help or hamper what people think of you and their willingness to listen to you or help you. And that's why you always hear how first impressions are so important. But that can be flipped around as well. Being mindful of how we perceive others and are we giving them a fair shot is something we can apply to our daily lives as well. However, if you ever want to play Survivor or any other social game, having a game plan of what your first impression and perception will be is crucial. If you look like you play basketball, it might be best to just lean into that, but also emphasize how you are just a one-sided physical player that can't possibly do any puzzles or run very fast. If you're a woman who looks like a mom, take advantage of that perception and be the mom to the tribe, but also do your best to kick butt in challenges so you are viewed as a valuable member who the tribe can depend on. Now, there are thousands and thousands of examples that can be used, but just remember that in life or in Survivor, people's perception of others is their reality, whether it is true or not. Thanks for watching, and if you like the content you see here, then please consider supporting me and this channel on Patreon. Your financial support makes all of this possible, so thank you, and thank you for watching.